Welcome. The Pre-Raphaelite exhibition is really very exciting, for me particularly, because to see somebody a group of people look so closely at flowers is really lovely. And it's nice to discover that flowers still have so much meaning in people's lives. It's an age-old thing that people, as Andrew said, have been sending flowers, and flowers have held such meaning for such a long time, for centuries. And the more you look and learn, the more you realise how flowers do impact our everyday life, and have always done and continue to do, which is really lovely. We see them around us all the time. And I believe they bring a certain something to your life that nothing else can bring, and they enrich your life, if you like. And flowers are everywhere we look. They're in our fabrics, they're on our walls. We sit on them on chairs in beautiful fabrics. We walk on them in carpets. We wear them on our wrists as fragrance, and we talk about them, we carry them, we send them, we draw them, we enjoy them. And that's something that's really special. And there's not many things in the world that actually give us that much just by simply growing out of the ground. I wanted to ask all of you, I suppose, what a flower means to you, what different flowers mean to you, because they mean many different things to many different people. And one particular flower can mean a different thing for a lot of other people. So I think probably if you start thinking about how flowers affect you in your life and how you use them, it's a nice way to think that people actually come and go from flowers. A rose might mean something to one person. Somebody carried a rose, somebody got a rose on their first date with someone that they've still got on the mantelpiece or they've pressed into a book. Or did you carry them down the aisle when you got married, or do you grow them in your garden and look after them and enjoy them? That's something we can all think about, and how do we use them now? You get so much joy from growing your own flowers and from giving and sending flowers. And if you ask the question, will we always do so? I think we will. I think we always have. It's something that we can't get away from, and it's a simple pleasure to stop and smell the roses is a real thing that brings people joy. So I think we'll always enjoy flowers the way we do now. There's many different ways that flowers symbolise events and the passing of time in our lives. Flowers have traditional meanings. There's a lot of very strong meanings that flowers have, and you'll see that in the Pre-Raphaelite exhibition. It occurred to me that nobody actually bothers to paint a flower if not for a reason. So it's very unlikely for someone to just go ahead and embellish a canvas with a bloom without considering its meaning and its relevance to the piece of art that they're creating. And that's true when people send flowers now. If people ring me in my flower shop and say, somebody's had a baby, what shall we send? Then, you know, they're asking me, what shall we send? I had a lady come in today to say, it's a new baby girl. Well, just something small, a bunch of sweet peas, a bunch of pink sweet peas. It was so lovely because they're in season now. And every time that little girl has a birthday, she can always be given pink sweet peas because it's a seasonal thing. And I think with, you know, you consider our carbon footprint these days, and you can get asparagus any time of the year and you can get roses any time of the year. But it's still really lovely to be able to get something in season that's really true and natural and fresh, and it makes us think that way, and that's the beauty of flowers. In terms of ceremony, I mean, the gentleman at the top of the screen is giving his lady a nosegay, and it's a tiny weeny little posy which evokes special meaning to them, and she looks quite thrilled. But of course, nosegays were traditionally used to mask the smell of the street as you walked through the streets of London, because everything wasn't quite swept clean the way it is these days, and everyone just threw their trash and goodness knows what into the gutters. So for a lady to walk down the street in London once upon a time, it was sometimes a hard thing to walk past some of the sights and smells, and a nosegay made things a lot more pleasant. So even though it looks really lovely in theory, and smells really lovely, it actually had a real purpose, which is what we love about flowers. They work hard. Ceremonially, that's Michael Hutchence' casket spray there. I don't know if anybody recognises it. something like that is quite significant in people's life. To mark the passing of somebody, flowers help us in that regard, and it's a really lovely thing to be able to express something as you do so. It's for Michael, that was, it's covered in iris. It's a really unusual thing to do, and that was a very specific thing that they did to express love of a friend who got the message definitely. And of course the lily right in the middle of the casket to represent his daughter, who was heavenly Hirani tiger lilies, so the lily was for his daughter. And for me, I think that's magnificent, that with such a picture, it can have so much meaning, and people all over the world actually get to enjoy it and consider the meaning as well. And then just a simple bouquet that you can buy in a shop, or to cheer somebody up, or yourself on the way home. The simple pleasures of flowers are as powerful as they've ever been, and it's something that we've all always been able to enjoy and access, so still to this day. Formally, another use for flowers is to use them in a formal sense. Red poppies on Anzac Day, for instance. So poppies have a really strong meaning. They come from something along the lines of, they can be traced back for many centuries in their significance, but really to represent the blood of the fallen soldiers, and that's why we use poppies to signify remembrance at times of anniversaries of war. Rosemary as well is a really strong thing, and people often use it as the essence of rosemary to keep their head together when they're studying and to remember things, but it's always lovely to wear a sprig of rosemary or to think. I remember a very dear friend whose mother passed away, and to give her a sprig of rosemary as she went up to her family home was a really important thing for me to do, and for her to just stop and consider and breathe in. Or it could mean, you know, barbecued lamb on a Sunday afternoon. So again, different meanings, different occasions, crosses all parts of life. So a laurel wreath as well, for the on your head, or a wreath that you place on the tomb of the soldiers, is symbolic in its representation of long life, eternal life. So traditionally, flowers such as roses and carnations have specific meaning. There's a lot of flowers that still hold very true to the meanings that have been alive for centuries. Carnations, which in Italian the translation is little nail, just purely because of the shape of them. But also, it's said that the red carnations, it is said that the Virgin Mary actually wept at the death of Jesus, and that her tears became carnations as they hit the ground. So there's all these lovely meanings that are tied up with flowers that you know, we don't always think about, but it's lovely to know that they hold so much meaning for everybody. And you see that in the exhibition. A lot of the flowers that are painted, there are roses and there are lilies for purity, and there are violet. You'll see Ophelia floating along with violets coming away from her, and it's a really lovely thing to enjoy and think about. So I think, interestingly though, there are many reasons, many different meanings for flowers. Even yellow roses is pretty controversial. It can be happiness and joy and you're lovely, or it can mean jealousy and friendship or jealousy, one or the other. So it's not, in olden days though, to send yellow roses to somebody was not necessarily an act of friendship, shall we say. Orange is supposed to be desire or passion. So when you're taking one of those roses at the end of the evening, you have to think about whether you want to choose white for virtue, or yellow for jealousy, or orange for desire. I think traditionally, as I said, you can't really get away from red roses saying I love you, and Valentine's Day is something that we all enjoy, and is probably, certainly for me as a florist, one of the strongest messages conveyed by flowers still is the red rose, meaning I love you, and never is that truer than on the 14th of February. that's something that we enjoy. It's, you know, a lot of boys don't want to buy their girlfriends flowers in particular, but I really should. But there's a lot of love as well, and I think that's a really lovely thing. Sure, it's a really commercial idea, and it's a really, you know, in this day and age, there's a lot of things like this that are really pushed home to us. But at the heart of it, never ceases to amaze me what beautiful messages are read over the phone to me for the delivery of roses on Valentine's Day, and the same for Mother's Day as well. A lot more joy there. Everybody loves sending flowers to their mum, but it's a lovely thing to do. And things like the red and Mother's Day, the chrysanthemums, which is not necessarily don't necessarily have the same meaning in other countries, in Japan or in China. Whereas for us, the season coincides with Mother's Day, and they've always been mums to us. And big, fabulous chrysanthemums come into season, and you know that Mother's Day must be coming around. And no mum is happier than one who receives a big bunch of Chrissies on Mother's Day. And the Christmas wreath, of course, is something that is really symbolic, and a way that people could have flowers or floral decoration in their homes at a time when there's not a lot of blooms poking through the snow, but still lots to celebrate at Christmas as the family came together. And so, again, flowers come to us again and again through celebrations and enjoyment of ceremonies in life. I think as a new baby's born, that's something that's really still done now. People still send flowers to people, a new baby, as it comes. And there's nothing like sending tulips to a new mother who'll just be lying in bed or nursing a child, and just to watch a couple of bunches of tulips just stretch and grow. And when they start, they're really quite small and tight, like these ones in the picture, but they're to just sit and watch them grow and stretch towards the light and double in size and eventually fall. It's delightful, and that's something that we really do cherish still and have access to, which is nature. And I think people do, even whether or not you realise it, it does bring joy to people still. There's sunshine in your smile, says a yellow tulip. Likewise, I think with death and rebirth, this, I think, as I was saying before, with the casket spray, there are many things that that people remember significant times in their life, and we still find that in a season will come around and a flower will come in. And I remember the first time I ever there are flowers that I discovered from being a florist that I didn't know existed before, of course. And whenever I smell hyacinth, I remember one of my earliest days in this kind of weather in a flower shop and stripping hyacinth and getting them ready for sale. And it's the same with, at the moment, this is around the time that my father died 2 years ago. And these flowers we did recently at an event at the Opera House, which was a celebration. It was a lovely cocktail party. As soon as these flowers come into season, the Nardina and the Grevillea, all these sorts of flowers, and it reminds me that this is a time of year that my dad died, and it was really important to me to represent him in the casket spray. And so at a time when I was able to talk about it, I sat down with the girls and we planned what we were going to do. And so then on the day I was able to enjoy it without the stress. And it's really lovely because now I use these flowers again and again and again, and I think of Dad, and I see leaves coming in and out, and I see the seasons coming in, and you just know. And it's a really lovely way to celebrate and to rebirth people in your life and to enjoy them coming and going. Apparently my grandmother never had jonquils in the house because everybody she ever loved died when jonquils were in season. But and that's what my mum thinks of when she sees jonquils, but she loves jonquils, so she has them in her garden, but Grandma never did. So again, different meanings for different people. Possibly one of the strongest messages, certainly it's flowers, a lot of flowers go into is a celebration of a wedding, and we certainly saw that quite recently with Prince William and Catherine Middleton getting married. Sia here, our gorgeous bride, is to me, just the epitome of a happy bride, and carrying her bouquet that we sat down and we planned for her to match her gown, which was gold, and she was going to walk down the street from her house to her church, carrying the bouquet. And I have photos of her pinning the buttonhole on her father and her mother holding her corsage in her hand. And we know the church because it's a local church, and massive big flower arrangements in the church, and flowers for her bridesmaids. And it's just such a lovely, all-encompassing way to enjoy a celebration, is with flowers. I really do think it breathes life into a room. And in terms of symbolism, it marks an occasion, and it leaves memories that are lasting, and they go on again and again and again. And we often say that to husbands, if Sia's husband rings and orders flowers for her every anniversary, and it's really lovely because we know him and he's local, and she sends flowers to people and he rings, and through flowers you can send messages, and it's just really lovely to make those connections. And again, in this hustle and bustle, all of this emails and that sort of thing, to just again stop and smell the roses. I used to work with someone who this is before I was a florist, when I used to work in an office, and one lady in particular used to stop every Monday on her way to work and buy flowers. And the ritual, which I can really appreciate now and never really had time for at the time, for her to stop, and she'd cut and she'd arrange the flowers every Monday morning in a vase on her desk, and she'd have them there all week, and every following Monday she'd get new flowers and she'd cut them and arrange them. And it's just such a lovely thing to do, and to have something lifelike on your table like that is a really nice thing. Peonies mean happy life, and they're available for 6 weeks in the year, in November. And that's a really lovely thing to do for a wedding, because again, only in November and December can you get peonies, and what a joy they are. We recently did another wedding for somebody who was inspired by an event that we did here at the art gallery. And it was in this room here, and we helped Catherine Martin launch her wallpaper series, which had an Australian motif. And these people, Simone and Michael, actually saw the flowers that we did there, and they got married recently, and they're both officers for national parks and wildlife, and it was really important to them to celebrate their wedding with native flowers. So to carry flannel flowers in your bouquet, she just happened to be getting married when they were in season, and it was a really lovely thing to celebrate with eucalyptus and all sorts of native flowers. The tea tree and the blushing bride as well, and just flannel flowers, the touch of them, they're so textural and so beautiful, and to have that, carry that in your bouquet. And Michael had a little buttonhole with them as well. I think this is probably a photo that we've all seen a lot of. This is Catherine Middleton's bouquet. And in terms of symbolism, this is a really fabulous example of how flowers still mean so much in our lives. Again, the tradition of the royal family is all royal brides since Queen Victoria's time carry a sprig of myrtle from the same plant that is planted in the palace grounds. So ever since Queen Victoria's time, every bride carries a tiny little piece of myrtle, which stands for everlasting love, and that's a lovely thing to do, to carry in your bridal bouquet. But, you know, in the same way as a royal speaks to her husband, a man that she's about to marry, she's also speaking to the world, and there's so many people, so many millions and millions of people, and everybody is looking at the images of this couple sharing their lives and searching for meaning. And flowers let you do that. You know, lily of the valley is just such a divine flower for purity and happiness, and the myrtle as well, the sweet william, which actually means gallantry, so how nice is that? And hyacinth is a constancy of love. So it looks really pretty, but it's effective, and it carries such meaning, and I think that's a really lovely thing. She had 3 bouquets made, interestingly, one for the photos, one for afterwards, and before, during and after, so one that was laid on the tomb of the unknown soldier as well. So symbolism reigns. I think another thing the simple pleasures of flower. A friend of mine told me a story that she, when she came to her house, she inherited this rose bush that grew outside her bedroom window, and for her it was symbolic because she'd finally bought her dream house and it had a proper garden and somebody had grown these roses, and how am I going to look after them? And it was such a challenge for her, and it was still blooming. And when she brought her new baby home and her life was complete, and she sat in her bedroom and looked at the rose bush out her window, and she had a house and a rose bush and a baby, and life was just wonderful. And every time the rose bush blooms, she thinks of that moment when she brought her new baby home. So it doesn't matter how big he gets, it's always a lovely thing for her to enjoy. We have a lot of customers who come into our shop still and buy flowers for themselves every week, which is a really lovely thing to do as well, and send flowers every week for an ailing sister, or customers have, one of our customers in particular who I can think of is actually a graphic illustrator herself, and she still draws pictures for magazines and things of garden layouts, and so treasures so much and knows all of her botanicals, and such a joy to chat to someone who knows so much about flowers and enjoys them as we do. And she'll always grab whatever's in season and she'll enjoy it just purely for its aesthetic, and maybe she'll draw it, maybe she'll just enjoy it. But it's a really lovely thing for us all to have, and I think, again, the symbolism of flowers is different for everybody. And crosses all areas of life. I think for Carrie Bradshaw, making such an impact walking down the street with that amazing flower, which I just think is so symbolic of who she is, and for flowers to be carried in a royal bridal bouquet and to be so significant, and then to grace the screens of movies and TV shows and still, you know, carry it off in the same way, send strong messages, is a really powerful thing. And it also reminded me of one of the scenes in one of the Sex and the City shows, in which one of the girls' mothers died, and they were all getting together and threw in to send flowers to the funeral. And one of the girls was Charlotte was carefully on the phone the whole time, planting the flowers and saying, I want it to be beautiful, all of the really lovely things, just roses and lilies and phalaenopsis orchids, and it has to be gorgeous. No crap, she said. It has to be absolutely beautiful. And then when they arrived at the funeral and she said, oh, were all the flowers okay? And they said, look, here they come now. And it was this huge, massive, disgusting thing that she was absolutely horrified to see. Not at all the symbolism she had in mind, not at all the message she wanted to convey. And she said, I wanted them to say, we're so sorry for your loss, and we love you. Not, she's dead, let's disco. And I just thought that's just encapsulates the different messages flowers can convey with the best intentions, but still, what a celebration, something so big, and maybe or maybe not somebody's personal style. In terms of style, flowers are used in a corporate event to launch the new season of a fashion magazine, the jewel colours, and how better to do that with the jewels of spring, and so many blooms, and how can we possibly do this? And to just surround a whole, and well, the whole room was just filled with flowers, and it was at the Opera House, and it was, you know, just an amazing thing, but a celebration that flowers have meaning for a specific purpose, and they just weave their magic for everybody. Again, Commonwealth Bank, only black, only white, only yellow. Very strong messages. We all know that about the Commonwealth Bank, and that's the message that they want to convey as well. In terms of flowers in art, you'll see in the Pre-Raphaelite exhibition, it was actually a really lovely thing to see how much they concentrated on flowers, and to actually really concentrate on flowers as they appear in nature and to represent that in their art. Wayside flowers, just walking down the street, to sit down and sketch a flower in its infinite detail. And I think that's a really lovely thing for artists to be able to do. And over the centuries, over the many, many years, to see flowers depicted still to this day on our walls and in art. And sometimes you can't tell what the meaning is. This is Robert Hughes's, oh, what's in that hollow? And for me, the flowers are so powerful. The corpse, of course, is just glows there in the dark hollow, but to other roses growing over the top of him. And it's quite a daring thing to do, really, to depict a corpse like that. Or are they really just concentrating on flowers in their natural state? Ophelia, as I said before, floats down and with her necklace of violets, which of course symbolise humility and the flower of paradise. So it's a really lovely, a beautiful, lasting things. Ophelia, who said, "There's pansies, that's for thought," in Shakespeare's Hamlet. In a commercial sense, the Pre-Raphaelites had to make money from their art at the end of the day, and flowers were able to be represented in a commercial sense to sell wares on ceramics and also in wallpaper as well. It's impossible to improve on the works of God, and the natural outline of the leaves and flowers must be more perfect and beautiful than any invention of man. There's not more really to be said. And schools of design were established for artists, for commercial artists to actually depict more truly and to learn how to draw things for a commercial sense and use them in an arts and crafts sense as well. And still we do that now, and we have an example of a more modern wallpaper in Catherine Martin's and all sorts of things now that we still see in homewares and in dress fabrics and all walks of life. We still see flowers and enjoy them as art around us. Closer to home we have, again, flowers in the home, grevillea. The native flowers are a really lovely thing too. I had the girls put grevillea and Gymea lilies so that I would stop and listen to other people's opinions tonight as well. A Gymea lily is supposed to encourage respect for others and resolve the need for status. So I've just tucked a little bit in here so that I wouldn't get out of control tonight. We've actually got an Illawarra flame tree at the entrance of our holiday house, which is a joy to find out that it actually stands for self-approval and acceptance, which is a really lovely welcome to people who come to stay with us at our holiday house. In the same way, wattle stands for joy and expectation, which I think is actually a really lovely thing, that it's our national flower, and that's just, Australians are so optimistic and to have that symbolism projected to the world is a really lovely thing. The jacaranda, which you see all over Sydney, was often gifted to new mothers from one in particular nurse, new baby health nurse, who used to give saplings to new mothers when they came and visited with their babies, and now you see them planted all over Sydney. In a more important sense, estate flowers, to be able to have a whole lot of men in a rugby uniform with a flower on their chest is pretty amazing, I think. And, you know, can symbolise, flowers will symbolise all sorts of, and the Sturt Desert pea only grows where it grows, and we can't grow it here in Sydney, so it's a lovely thing to represent the state in which it is represented. And I think probably flowers will always continue to represent things for us. It's a lasting thing. Something like lavender, every time you walk through a lavender hedge, it calms you down. It's a nice thing to have. And we'll remember people, and we'll remember times that went past. Every time we touch flowers and see things, we'll be reminded, and they hold that symbolism for us. And even if it's a simple pleasure that it was. And finally, I'd just like to impart a lovely thing that I often say to people when they're tossing up what to buy in the shop, and this lovely poem by Sadi, that if of thy mortal goods thou art bereft, and from thy slender store 2 loaves alone to thee are left, sell one, and with the dole buy hyacinths to feed the soul. And I've always thought that's a really lovely thing, because I do think that flowers feed our soul and they give us a lot of joy, and it's something that we can always continue to enjoy in all walks of life. Thank you very much for having me.